Whoops. Right, so here we are, and let's go back a bit. So here you are in the Clinkz game, and you've watched Road to Reformation streams, or Chalanquois streams, if we call him that, or Leo. He really needs to rebrand himself, it's getting confusing. So you do exactly what he does when he plays mid Clinkz. You just harass the enemy with your orb walk and kill them. So you clearly learned that from him, or at least I assume you did. And this is pretty good, I guess. Now, I'm not a mid player, or even a core player, or a Clinkz player, so there's probably a lot I could say here that if I was, but I'm just a support player, and I'm only 4K, so I don't really have too much advice to give here. I guess you don't have the mid ward. Like, he was complaining, Leo was complaining on stream about this, his mid ward not giving him vision over the mid laner, and now you have the same problem. That's hilarious. That's actually so funny. That's a big thing for me though, because I've been kind of neglecting my mids observer as a support. I haven't been giving them their own observer to place. So maybe I should start doing that, especially if they're playing something that harasses the enemy, like a Clinkz. So this probably isn't too interesting, this laning phase. Basically you win it. Seems to be. Actually, you even got the Sunstrike dodge. So I'm not going to bother going back and talking about that. One thing you could do is you could just buy your own Observer Ward and place it here, like Chalanquois does, or like Leo does. It's only 75 gold. It's really trivial in cost. So, continuing here, I don't have much to say about this. I think the mid ward was... you do get the dust though, so you are thinking about how can I attack this Invoker. But I think the mid ward would have been a good choice. You are kind of low on mana, but you're getting the Soul Ring soon, so that's not so bad. Bit late to the rune. You are just trying to pull the lane... I guess your thought process here is you turn off your Aquila and you pull the lane back here, because you can't harass him if he's standing on his high ground. But if the lane's here, then you can harass him. So that seems pretty good. I like that. So let's see what happens next. Just some more farming. Yeah, you're 2 levels ahead. You're making a pretty decent effort to harass the Invoker. So that's fine. And you dodged that 1 kill attempt he made on you, so that was fine. Let's check this again. I didn't really like your rotation away from mid in the sniper game, which I'm going to look at second. And yeah, this rotation was just bad. Like, it's pointless, because by the time you do it, it's all over anyway. Like, he's just dying to tower. So you probably should have... The pudge actually hooks the Wind Ranger. That was nice for him. So you probably shouldn't have done that. Rotating away from mid is if you're a hero that can't really push the tower, or if you're afraid of the enemy mid laner, or you have big spells, like you're a Puck or something. Not that Puck exists in this patch. You know, you have a big level 6 spell that you can use on enemies to get kills. And that's... Death Pact is not that. So you can just apply pressure in the mid lane. And this was the same thing you did in your sniper game. You rotated out of mid too early, when you could have just continued to apply pressure in the mid lane. Because you can push and you can harass the enemy mid, and you're not really that afraid of them. So... Oh, and another thing to consider is that you can dive tower with strafe, because it blocks... You dodge the tower projectiles. But I guess you would have been walking into, like, Cold Snap Meteor, which is why you didn't. So, perfectly fine play. Power tree. That's nice. You did this in your sniper game too. And then you irritated me because you didn't... And you have that. You have the wards, you have the dust. Very nice. The problem with buying these observers is that you're not really using them. Why'd you place the wood there? I guess you want to see the rune? I think I would much rather the ward should either be... This ward is too far back and it's like off to the side. This is kind of not hugely useful. I think I would have rather placed it here on the enemy side of the river, or just in the middle here somewhere. It's a pretty minor point though. And you still have this ward. I guess this is what happens when you're... This is why cores don't buy observers, because they need to be killing creeps, not wandering around for the perfect ward spot. So you're level 12 and still in the mid lane. I feel like that sort of... It feels a bit unsatisfying to have not... It's 30 minutes in and 12 levels in, and you still haven't killed the mid tower or gone on any big rotations. But, you know, there's an invoker here. So you finally get him. Maybe you should have... I'm not a Clinkz player, but you probably should have got an earlier point of skeleton walk if it works that well. So, yeah, you're winning mid pretty hard. That's nice. And dust, yeah. So let's see what happens next. So, of course, in this game, it probably wasn't your fault. I looked at the scoreboard and basically everyone on your team fed and was useless apart from you. Now, you kind of... Not every game has to be won, and it's possible that I should actually be looking at games where it's your fault that you lost, rather than this sort of game. So, yeah, you're just doing Clinkz things with a DD. You get a tower. Does feel a bit odd that you kill a different tower than mid first, but it's fine. Oh, do you die? No, you don't. Continue doing your stuff. Probably could have used soldering a bit more. You get your Orchid at 18 minutes, which is fine. So you kill this wave. See what happens next. So I guess you should have been here. You should have teleported mid as well. Like, okay, let's go back a bit. So you can see on the minimap, if you watch it at all, which, yeah, you're actually checking with the... You can see everything that's going on there. So you should be checking it more. And now, you should not be skeleton walking towards mid lane. You should be teleporting in. And I guess Faceless Void should have pinged his Chronosphere and made sure that you knew what he was doing. Yeah, you can kill the... I like that you're using quick cast, at least. I love quick cast. Pudge mysteriously just walks away from you. I don't know why it does that. But you're pretty fast even with dust. So, yeah, you should have teleported in there. Teleport into the trees where they can't see you, like Leo was saying on stream the other day. And just be ready, because it was pretty obvious that there was a fight going to happen there. And skeleton walking towards mid when you have a TP scroll is just strange. Don't do that. So, I guess you're looking for a kill here, that's fine. Then you see that the enemy team is bottom, so you can push mid, which is exactly what you do. I probably would have continued pushing mid there. But like I say, I'm not really a carry player, so... Yeah, like, you're turning up to this, and the entire enemy team here is here, and your teammate has already died. So, okay, now Chronosphere happens. This Weaver is extremely dead. Oh my goodness. That was a great save from Invoker. But yeah, you guys knew that they were all there, and then Void decides to go in 2v5. That is basically his fault. But I would have pushed mid, and I noticed that I said that before this disaster happened where your team just chain feeds. So if the enemy team is as 5, then... And you're a Clinkz, and you're in front, and you're pretty close to an enemy tower, like you were. You could have pushed that mid tower. You don't need to fight them. You can just push their towers. Because once you kill the tier 2, which won't take long, you can even threaten a tier 3, and then they will TP back, and then you don't really need to fight them. And you're just making them play to your tune. So now you don't have buyback, but it's only 22 minutes in, so they can't kill the tower yet, so that's fine. And Void gets a very high skill bash. That was pure skill from him. Next thing that happens is you once again... Why did you walk past him? That was odd. Couldn't you have killed the Undying? I don't know what your thought process there was. Does he have a Blade Mail or something? Oh, he has a Blade Mail Vanguard. I guess that's fair enough then. Yeah. I probably would have tried to kill him anyway, but I have ADHD, so that was fine. You're kind of hiding in the trees a bit, but that was justified. So let's think about this a bit more. So you should have, firstly, the moment that he walked into you, you should always think, what does my hero have available? And on Clinkz, you basically have invis, auto attacks, an auto attack booster, and Orchid. So the moment he walked into you, you should have just Orchided him before he got the hook off. And another thing, I guess you're on 360 HP, so you did have to keep on running. And he has a blink. What a man. Okay. So that was pretty hard to deal with a pudge that just... You walk around the corner and there's a pudge with a blade mail. The only thing you could have done there is been ready and think, I have an Orchid and I'm going to use it immediately. That's the thing that I see people doing in Dota, is they think too much about when they use their spells, and so they end up being too slow. Especially with Pugna players and Decrepify. Like, just use your spells. Use them the moment you can. Unless it's some spells that actually you don't want to just be using off cooldown. But Orchid, you can just use it and kill someone. So here the Radiant team just wanders uphill and feeds. You nearly kill yourself on Blade Mail. Happens to the best of us. Yeah, oh, that's nice. You go back on low HP. I like that. And you don't die for it either. So you built a Desolator. And I was about to say you should probably build a BKB. But you do go for the BKB immediately afterwards. Here's the thing though. Did you really need this Desolator to kill people? It helps, but I would say that you already have quite a lot of damage just from Searing Arrows and Orchid. If you're in a good position with Strafe, Searing Arrows, Orchid, you can kill someone without Desolator. And probably you should have gone for the BKB first, and maybe the Desolator or a different damage item after that. But I'm not a Clinkz player, so don't take my word as gospel. You correctly identify that you don't want to go on the Blade Mail Undying, so you kill the AA first, and then you just give up, which is fine. And the Pudge even turned up, so you're very, very correct to give up on that. So you do the obvious thing, which is, can I kill this Weaver? Just Orchid him first. Like, you definitely had a chance to Orchid him. So don't think about things too much. Just Orchid them and kill them immediately. I mean, you guys are still... the Radiant don't have a huge net worth advantage. And you have a Tree, an Axe, a Void. You have and a Wind Ranger. So your team has a nice mix of damage and disabled. So I think you can still definitely win at this point. So whatever went wrong hasn't really gone wrong yet, I would say. So notice how you have an Invoker, an AA, a Pudge, and an Undying on the enemy team. That is quite a lot of magical damage. I definitely think BKB before Dezo was the play. Like, look at this. You're forced to run away. You're forced to run away from Rot, from AA slow, and you're walking back in and still getting affected by it. So imagine if you just had a BKB here. Does your Desolator save you from cold feet? No. Is your Desolator useful when you're stunned? It isn't. So your BKB would have been so much more useful here. It would have guaranteed a kill on this Weaver. And look at how they behave. They just kill you because it's a stunned Clinkz. A lot of this damage is magical right now. Imagine if you had a BKB. This was definitely the wrong item choice to go for a Desolator. Although you don't actually die, do you? You do die, eventually. But yeah, your Desolator was useless. Completely useless there. It did not help you at all. A BKB would have been huge. But again, your team is still doing okay. Just continue pushing up here, in my opinion. So you do make the correct... And you don't have a BKB. So you just get... Wait, weren't you damaged? I fast forwarded too much. So Invoker tries to combo you. Does he fuck it up? He doesn't use Cold Snap until like halfway through, and he doesn't have Dust. Oh wow, it's the Death Pact heal. That's so huge. I forgot how huge Death Pact was. Anyway, so you just give up and go away, which is fine. Maybe you should have gone back in on that Invoker, but they were rotating people back, so... Weaver has a Linkens now. I guess that's another alternative to the Desolator, is buying a Nullifier or a Sheepstick. I don't think Desolator was good. I think there's a Nullifier, Sheepstick, or a BKB would have been better. You don't need raw damage, you need disables, and you need to protect yourself. Did you just walk into tower vision? Well, you didn't notice that somehow. That was odd. Okay, it's go time. Your Void has gone in, and your Void goes in and does not cast Chrono. What a special person. And he dies without buyback in front of his tier 3. So the enemy just push it because the Void just dies. What a terrible player. You finally have the BKB. You're walking around like in circles. You need to just auto-attack people. Just press... This is such a weird fight. Okay, now you get him. Surely. Surely. You had Orchid. Yeah, so you're not using your items very much. At some point there, I think you should have just used your Orchid and used your BKB. It's not... Like, I feel like you're probably thinking about things too much. You're walking around and positioning yourself and... Oh, when shall I go on them? Just do it. Just do it. Don't overthink things. Just make life hard for the enemy by attacking them immediately. Especially when you have an axe or something. Or a tree. How did you do that? That's so funny. So who on your team was going to take this Aegis? Void wasn't there. So Windranger wanted to take it. So you decided to let your Windranger take it. What? So she wasn't going to take it? Yeah, you should have taken this Aegis. Because you're just stronger than the Windranger. She doesn't have a BKB. She's 2 levels lower than you. You should have been standing right on top of Roshan, and you should have picked up the Aegis instantly. And you die. But you have buyback, so it's not the worst. But that was terrible. When Roshan is being taken, pick it up immediately. I didn't even know that there was a Windranger in this game. She should definitely not be the one picking up the Aegis. So you're standing around. You correctly identify that you can't really fight them by yourself. Tree is a tree. He's in the jungle with his fellow trees. Your axe turns up and you go in. That was pretty nice. I like that you waited like that. You didn't actually kill anyone. You probably should have gone on the Weaver when he was axe called, but this is good enough too. You probably should have stepped out of that Cataclysm. Yeah, you definitely should have stepped out of that Cataclysm. When you see Cataclysm, you definitely need to walk sideways. That's another thing that you don't ever think about. If there's a Cataclysm, you do not stand in it, because it's about 500 or 1,000 pure damage. So just walk out of it instantly. Did this Void have his Q available and just die to zombies? He's so bad. So you still have 2 lanes of racks, but I would say at this point the game is thrown. You just died for 117 seconds. So where is my actual notepad? So there wasn't a huge amount that obviously did wrong to me this game. I think the biggest thing was that your BKB purchase should have been before the Desolator and not after it. The other problems with this game were pretty minor, I would say. Oh, and picking up the Aegis was of course a big issue. You should have done that. You should be spam clicking on Roshan. When you're killing Roshan and he's nearly dead, you should be spam clicking on him so that you instantly pick up the Aegis. You should have your cursor right on top of him, spam clicking. There's actually there's an option for that. I don't know if you have it available, but it's something like, I don't know where it is. Auto repeat right mouse. So you have that option enabled, and you just spam click on Roshan. You probably have that option anyway. So you get dumpstered by a halberd. At this point, there's not much you can do. Obviously, this game isn't really on you that much, but there were two big mistakes, the BKB and the Aegis. The rest of it is basically your team. And you don't need to win every game. So I wouldn't agonize too much over this game. Even the games where you do well and still lose are definitely the most frustrating ones. Okay, you got to kill this guy, right? See, Orchid? Orchid? Does he actually not have any spells available? What's he doing? I don't... Did you have Strafe? So you didn't use Strafe and you didn't use Orchid. You just need to use these things. Don't overthink things. When you have things available, use them. And that applies even to big ultimates. You need to be ready. Because using your spells badly is still better than not using them at all. Okay, you have to Orchid this guy. You do. A Nullifier would be nice. A Desolator is making you kind of hurt yourself even more against his Blade Mail. If he activates it. So a Nullifier would have prevented him from using the Blade Mail. And it would have... A Nullifier would have enabled you to kill them a lot. It would have enabled you to pop Linkens and then Orchid the Weaver. It would have enabled you to prevent the Undying and the Pudge from using their Blade Mails. It would have enabled you to pop Invoker's Linkens before... Oh, so that's why you didn't use Orchid. That's fair enough then. But if you have an Orchid and the enemy buys Linkens, that's when you want a Nullifier or a Sheepstick. And if the enemy has Blade Mails, then that's when you want a Nullifier or a Sheepstick. So you definitely should have bought Nullifier, Sheepstick, and BKB. And instead of this Desolator, any of those other items would have been better than the Desolator, I think. Now, everything I say should be taken with a pinch of salt, because I'm not a carry player, I'm just a support player, and I'm not high MMR, I'm only 4k. So in the Clinkz game, I would say BKB before second damage item. Nullifier, Scythe of Vice instead of Deso. Good versus Linken's Blade Mail. Did you? What do you have in your quick buy? You're not using it, otherwise I could comment on that. Pick up Aegis instantly and spam click the ground. Also, don't rotate from mid when you can still pressure the enemy mid laner and tower. So that's all I really have to say about this game. And you're not even dead, it's just your Void probably... I bet he had Chronosphere available and just didn't use it. Your Void really let you down this game. Your Wind Ranger was kind of... Why does she have a Maelstrom and a Desolator? Jesus Christ. Stop building Desolator. It's not very good anymore. Don't know why this guy has a pipe or a hood. I mean, it's not very good. Axe was not so terrible. There's nothing really more to say about that game. So I hope I didn't waste too much time on this. I hope this isn't a boring video for you. And now I'm going to go and look at the sniper game. Because as you can see from my notes, I have a lot more to say about the sniper game. Wait, is that the wrong sniper? That's the wrong one. It's this one that I've looked at already. Oh, and another problem in the Clinkz game was that time when the enemy had 5 heroes in the bottom lane, near where Dota2 used to be, and you rotated there to fight them, and then you and Void died 2v5. You could have just been hitting the enemy mid-tower. Don't fight versus 5 enemies showing in a lane when you can kill their towers instead, as a fast pusher like Clinkz. So here we are in the sniper game. Just as with the Clinkz game, it was mostly a team that lost this game, but you did make some big mistakes. Actually, in this game, you made 2 very big mistakes, in my opinion, later on in the game. In the early game, you played it pretty well. That's a very nice range creep block, and you even get it. So this part of the game, I'm not a mid laner or a core player, so I don't have a huge amount to say about this. But there is one thing that you could have done better that's obvious even to me, which is that you put a point in your shrapnel, and you're kind of winning the lane against this guy. And look at this guy. He's a drow. He's also a terrible player because he has boots for some reason that completely escapes me. Boots is just not useful in this lane. You kill that instead of taking it because it's useless to you. That's a good idea. I like that. Although, yeah, you didn't want someone rotating on you. Again, It's funny. I mean, you must... What? Is that your observer as well? What's going on? I'm so confused by those. Is this a replay bug or something? Oh well. The thing that actually I want you to change when you're playing sniper. So look at this guy. You can harass him. And you know that you can harass him, which is why you move and auto-attack him there. So why don't you use your shrapnel on him? Now the fact that you have your killer turned off and that you're kind of keeping the lane a bit back shows that you want to have the lane here and you want to harass him from range. And you probably are thinking that you don't want to mess that up when you have a shrapnel. Shrapnel would push the lane, which is not what you're trying to do. So if that's your thought process, that's absolutely fine. But the thing about shrapnel and sniper is that before sniper gets level 6, he literally cannot run out of mana, because this is long cooldown and it's only 50 mana, so he never runs out. So it's basically a free spell, especially when you have 3 charges. You could use your shrapnel and you'd still have 2 shrapnels left. You'd still have 350 mana left. So it's basically free. Like most spells in Dota cost mana or they have a cooldown, and in this particular situation shrapnel doesn't. So you should just use it. And what you should do when you're using a spell to attack an enemy is auto-attack them first, then cast the spell, then auto-attack them again, and it just builds up. You could probably force this guy out of lane, and even if you push the lane into his tower and you're thinking, oh, well then he's guaranteed to get experience, you have good range from your spells and your auto-attacks. You could continue harassing him, even when he's standing back here. You could put a shrapnel down here. So you're not really using your shrapnels to harass this guy. You could have abused him even more than you are. I mean, you're heavily winning mid anyway, and you kill this guy pretty easily, but I think you could have been more aggressive. Oh, and this was terrible. So you rotate bottom. I can kind of see the motive is very good, because your team is having a hard time, and you can help them turn it around. And that's exactly what you do. But you left lane when this guy was level 4.5 and you were level 7. So you're a level and a half ahead of her when you leave the lane. And then, like, what are you doing auto-attacking this? This is terrible. This does absolutely nothing, auto-attacking this creep. You cannot push this tower. You cannot, not this early. And you can't farm the lane because your CK needs to be doing that. And then you go and do this, which was bad. Actually, let's look at this in a bit more detail. So killing this small camp with auto-attacks as a sniper 5 minutes in takes way too long, and it's a small amount of money. Killing this camp with the auto-attacks was a total waste of time. What you could have done instead is when you were killing that catapult, you should have thought, this is a waste of time. I want to jungle a bit and then head back to mid. And the jungling you should have been doing is not the small camp. You should have stacked this camp. Like, notice how you could have definitely... You could easily have been over here to stack this camp. And then you can farm it with a couple casts of shrapnel and some auto-attacks. And that would have been okay. Maybe that wouldn't have actually been good. Maybe you should have just walked directly back to mid. Or ideally never left mid in the first place. Because here's the thing. But if you are going to jungle, don't jungle this camp. Stack this camp and then jungle it. But the other thing is, so your idea in rotating back down here is that down to this bottom lane is, oh, I can help my team. I can put some pressure on the enemy offlaners. But they're so tanky that even if you kill both of them, they can still come back into this lane just fine. So you can't actually switch the lane around so that it's now a winning lane. If you rotate into a lane, ideally you'd want to leave it in a position where you've dumpstered the enemy so hard that now your side laners can win it by themselves from that point on. And that's not what you've achieved. And realistically, against these heroes that have 1000 HP, because they're strength heroes, that wasn't really going to happen either. And also, Io is a weak hero when it's played by someone in the Guardian bracket. So you should have understood that you couldn't really win the lane, even if you killed them. Because they would just come back. So you probably shouldn't have made that rotation. The other reason for you not to rotate out of mid is that you were doing fine. You're dumpstering this drow. You can continue harassing her, you can continue killing her, and you're a sniper, so if you kill her, you can just pressure this tower. So you would be doing a lot more in this mid lane than in the bot lane. So you kill her again, but look at the level difference. You were a level and a half ahead when you decided to leave, and now you're actually still almost a level and a half ahead. Not quite as much. Another thing that may have motivated you to leave a mid lane is that at least you're not wasting all of that experience, because at least your bounty hunter's getting it. That's fine, right? But that's not really how it works. Like, bounty hunter just, he's a roamer. He's not really a core. That's not. It's nice that he was there to leech the experience. Otherwise, it would have been a totally idiotic thing. But it didn't really justify it either. So let's see what I have written down next. Stack camps and shrapnel them. Like, this is another thing you did later. You, at some point you decide, like, you could have shrapnelled him there. Again, you have 3 shrapnels. It's fine to keep hold of your shrapnels if you only have 1 shrapnel or 2 shrapnels left, because it is a 40-second cooldown or however long. It's actually a 55-second cooldown. But when you have all 3, you should definitely use 1 just for a bit of harassment damage. You do not need to save 3 shrapnels. Just use it. If you have 3 shrapnels available, then use 1 to harass the enemy drow. Just make her life a bit hard. Let's see what you're doing. I feel like you could have been more assertive in this lane. Like, drop a shrapnel on this axe. You should just cast shrapnel. You are kind of right to be playing a bit defensively here, though, because it's not just a drow anymore. It's an axe, it's a pudge, it's a drow. So they can kill you when they outnumber you like that. So at some point you get up some jungling. And once again the axe zones you off from taking the enemy mid-tower. Something you could have considered here is teleporting up here about 20 seconds ago to save this tower, but actually your troll was full mana and HP. But it probably wouldn't have worked, because this guy has RP and skewer. So, I don't know. Maybe you should have, maybe you shouldn't have. I'm not an expert at this game. I'm only 4K. Now, I think I may have missed it. I may have fast-forwarded past it. But in this game, you did some jungling of these creep camps with your auto-attacks. What you should have done is you should have stacked them. Whenever you're walking past a creep camp, you should think, is it 45 seconds or 55 seconds on the clock? Because that's your opportunity to stack these camps. And you definitely had opportunities in this game to stack these camps when you were down here jungling it, when I watched this replay the first time. And you didn't. And you could have shrapnel farmed a stacked camp. It's good to stack camps and shrapnel them. And you didn't do that. So that was another minor mistake. Not a huge one. So where are we now? So I don't have a huge amount to say about the game for the next 10 minutes of game time. Because I think you guys... I mean, there's probably all sorts of things that you could have done better. And I'm sure a 6K, if I was a 6K instead of a 4K, I would have all sorts of things to criticize you about here. But since I'm only a 4K, I think you played this part of the game fine. Like, you didn't die a single time. You're top of the net worth charts. You're killing the enemies. You occasionally take a tower. So it's all good, you know. Like, I've watched this before. You got some kills. It's all good. And that was funny when the DK was chasing you here. He actually didn't have mana and he didn't have soul ring for his breathe fire, so he couldn't kill you. He must have been so frustrated. But anyway, I'm just fast forwarding through to the point where you make a big mistake or two. You make several big mistakes. Well, you make two big mistakes. And even though most of this game was lost by your team and not by you, you definitely actually are partly to blame for losing this game because those mistakes were huge. Here's a minor thing that I didn't like, is that you didn't put this into your inventory. Actually, you die here, so this wasn't a huge mistake in my opinion. It was kind of understandable, but it was kind of bad. So let's pause the game here and think. Right. So you have four people with you. You have the IO, the CK, you have yourself, and you have this bounty hunter. And you see that there's three enemies. Do you see this DK? You don't see this DK or this Magnus. So currently what you think it is you think it's a 4v2. Then you see it's a 4v3. But you still have three people. They just used their cooldowns on your bounty hunter, right? So you can fight 3v3. And then you die. Now there's a couple of reasons why you were wrong to go in here. One is that you're walking uphill with no vision and... there's three heroes that can just kill you. You should have waited. So look at this. Your CK is going to go in, and he's a big tanky hero. He can turn on his armlet. He's got stout shield. You know, he's got 2,500 HP with armlet. He's got a stun, so he can go in first, and then you can lay down the pain from behind. But look at this. You go in first. You were too hasty. Also, this IO breaks his link, which was terrible. But you went in before this Chaos Knight, which you shouldn't have done. Another thing is that you totally saw this drow coming. Like, there's three people here. You probably shouldn't have gone in. You should have used... I mean, you're going uphill against no vision. And you didn't use your shrapnel over here, which I think you should have. Maybe. But hindsight's 2020. Like, you just get completely surprised. So the main reason why you should have played this whole fight more defensively and maybe not gone in at all is, of course, your troll. He's not here. And that's not really a mistake on his part. It's absolutely fine that he's down here. And look at this. He gets a load of creep waves. He gets a tower. He gets a load of creep camps. He's doing fine. So he didn't play this part wrong at all. That wasn't a big mistake, though. I can totally understand that you went in there. It wasn't the worst. The big problem in this game actually was that Troll did not build tanky items. If I was this Troll, I would not have built a Shadowblade. I would have built S and Y. I probably would have considered some sort of armor item or just... I probably would have just stacked HP actually. Because I'm against an axe and I have a sniper and a Chaos Knight on my team. That means I have to build tanky to not die. I can't build BKB because they have 3 BKB piercing stuns. So I have to build a lot of HP to survive if I'm this Troll. I would have also taken the 250 HP talent. That's a huge amount of HP. You should probably always take that. And also, because you have a sniper. So what does sniper do? Well, he sits in the back doing a lot of damage. So if I'm a troll, I want to sit in front and be tanky, so that the enemy focus on killing me, while my sniper is free to attack the enemy and do a lot of damage. So this guy had completely the wrong concept, and he didn't adapt to the game. He should have built tanky in this game. But that's obviously not on you. So I'm going to continue talking about what you did wrong. And we're coming up to the big throws. Because look, you're still doing fine. You have an 8k gold lead, you're ahead of the net worth. So you're doing fine in this game. You're still on track to win. Apart from the fact that your troll is feeding. I don't really have a huge problem with this. You did a nice 4-staff TP escape there. That was quite nice. This guy just walks down mid and feeds, which is... They all feed. Your whole team just feeds. That was so bad. So yeah, nothing huge going on here. This observer here was a bit too defensive in hindsight, but it was understandable in the moment, because you were worried that the enemy might still be there. So it wasn't the worst choice. Okay, we're coming up to the first big mistake of yours, which is you die. And I would like to make a point about your itemization. Instead of this chrysalis, so there's a print. You should have bought a Blink Dagger, and the reason for that is that with long range, high damage, low HP heroes like Sniper and like my favourite hero, which is Pugner, you need to ask yourself, how easy is it for the enemy team to run at me, and will my team protect me if the enemy team tries to run at me? So if you're a sniper and you have an Enigma and a Faceless Void and an Earthshaker and a support with a stun on your team, you're great, because they're going to stand in front of you. They're going to stop the enemy from getting to you, and that means you can build full damage like you are in this game. Now, your build here isn't actually that bad. I think this is the recommended items in Dota, and it's just a classic sniper build. You just build a lot of damage and a little bit of escape. But if you look at your team, a troll that... Oh my god, why is he here? Like, you guys went in without him, but you didn't know... You weren't expecting the whole enemy team to be here, so it was still okay. It was still not so bad for your team to randomly go in here. It was quite bad, but not terrible. But anyway, as a sniper, the question you want to ask yourself is, does my team protect me? And a CK kind of does, because he goes in with HP and he stuns someone, but he doesn't have an AoE disable, so he doesn't protect you that much. A bounty hunter gives you more movement speed, and sometimes he builds force staff and mech, so he can kind of protect you a little bit, but not much. And he also gives you vision of the enemies, which does protect you because it means you have scouting and you choose when to go in. So he kind of protects you a little bit, but not much, especially when he's building in Dagon 4. Does an IO protect you? Yeah, an IO protects you a huge amount if it's played by a good player and he's linking you. But the IO is not a good player, he's playing badly, you know that by now, and he's also not linking you most of the time, he's linking Troll and CK. And does Troll Warlord protect you? Well, actually he could, if he built tanky and just ran into the enemy team first and didn't worry about dying because he knows that his sniper can carry him. But he isn't doing that, he's building damage, and he's also pretty bad. So what does it mean if you're a sniper and your team isn't going to protect you? Well, that means you have to build more protective items that you can use to escape. Shadowblade is one item that you can build, that a lot of people do. I don't really want to suggest Shadowblade, though, because everyone bloody builds Shadowblade. How many are there? So there's an Invis hero... Oh, there's only actually 2 Shadowblades in this game. But at lower MMR, everyone builds Shadowblades. And what I would suggest that you build here, instead of a 2k gold item, which is a Crystalis, you could have gone for a Blink Dagger. And let me point out how a Blink Dagger would have been so much more useful to you here. So you go in with your team, which is kind of fair enough. Your bounty hunter's going in first. So the first minor mistake you make is you should be standing up here. And you should back up here a bit more. There's nothing wrong with like stutter stepping and backing off onto this ridge here, which you should be right now. Also notice how you're a bit slow on that shrapnel. And also notice how you're standing right next to the enemy. You should use your hurricane pike on them. Instead of using it on yourself, you should use it on the enemy, I think, in that situation. But let's pause the game here, right? You're a sniper. Your team picked a bad fight. They've died. You no longer want to be here. Imagine if you had a Blink Dagger. If you had a Blink Dagger here, you could just use it to say, okay, that didn't work. I'm going to blink up here and then run away. And you probably would have gotten away. It would have been a lot better if you had a Blink Dagger. Like, this guy wouldn't have been able to blink after you for 6 seconds. You could have run over here or something, or over here. It would have been nice. And instead you die, which was probably the most important death in this game, was you dying right here. And I think the fault... It's a bit like your Clinkz game, where you bought a Desolator instead of a BKB, and then you only got the BKB after the Desolator. In this game, I think you should have gone for a Blink Dagger. I mean, maybe a shadowblade. I'm not a carry player, I'm not a sniper player, but I think this damage was completely useless to you. I think there was no item that would have won you this fight, and because you can't rely on your team to help you and protect you in this game, you needed to build another escaping item, and that item was either a Blink Dagger or a shadowblade. So now, you did not buy back. You have buyback here. And the enemy takes a lane of Rax. 3 versus 4, which is already kind of bad. Like, your troll should have turned up and fought them before this. Your team probably should have beaten them in a 4v3 fight anyway. But when you realise that your troll is AFK and your look at their pushes. They push this Rax really quickly. So you cannot wait 30 seconds to respawn. Another thing is, though, that you see that they have this axe in the mid lane. And you also see the Pudge farming the mid lane too, because he's a terrible player. So they only have... Look at this. This Pudge is now showing. You can see this in game. You can see that they only have 3 people here, and that your team is being useless and not defending their axe. And they have fast pushers. So you should have bought back. You absolutely should have bought back here when you realise that the enemy have fast pushers, that your troll warlord isn't there, and that their axe and the Pudge isn't there. Because if you bought back here, you could have won this fight. You could have probably won this fight. And if you didn't win this fight, well, you're not going to win any fight, because it's a 5 versus 3 or a 4 versus 3. Absolutely should have bought back here. Now, you probably had a pretty good reason to not buy back, which was you were thinking, well, if I buy back and I die, then they can take mega creeps and then we instantly lose. Whereas if I don't buy back, then I can fight them when they're trying to take mid-Rax, and then I can buy back if I die there. We'll get a pretty decent defense and we'll only lose 1 lane of Rax. And sometimes that thought process is very good and very sensible. But not when they have only 3 heroes here, and your team is... You have 3 teammates. You're the highest net worth hero in the game. You probably wouldn't... You actually wouldn't be if you used buyback, but you're strong. You were strong enough to fight this, I think. Especially when you have these 3 teammates. Especially when you see this. And 20, you may have been alive. You probably should have bought back right about now. When you see how fast... When you were watching how fast this tier 3 died, you should have bought back at that immediate moment. Although you should know in advance that it's going to die quickly because they have a drown, a DK. So you should have bought back right now. Another minor thing that you did wrong, in my opinion. When you do respawn, you walk out of fountain towards the enemy. Now think about your teleportation scroll. There's nothing really you can do with it. It's not very useful. You do not need to save this teleportation scroll. So what I would have done is I would have... When I respawned here, I would have instantly teleported to this. I would have teleported right here. At this moment, I would be teleporting here. And that would have gotten you into this fight a bit faster. As it turned out, you actually won this fight anyway. Did this guy die? He doesn't even die. So, you guys... You should probably use your shrapnels a bit more, like you... But yeah, that 1 shrapnel is fine. So it turned out to not make any difference. Another thing is that once again you've bought observer wards and you're not really using them. I guess that's because you haven't reached a point in the map where it's actually useful yet. Oh, and here is the second point in the game. Here is where you absolutely throw the game. So when your team takes an Aegis, in the absolute overwhelming majority of cases, when you take the Aegis, when you kill Roshan and take the Aegis, it's go time. It's time to barrel down a lane, or maybe get one pick off first, but it's time to go and attack the enemy. Either by barreling down a lane and taking racks, or by smoking to find a pick off after a minute or so when the enemy have gotten bored of hiding in base. And look what you do! You jungle! You jungle! Like, what are you even doing right now? Look at what your team's doing. Your team is pushing the mid lane. Your bounty hunter is scouting the enemy. That's exactly what they should be doing. They're doing exactly the sensible thing. I don't know why this guy's standing in the trees here. But anyway, your team is playing it sensibly. Your troll has the Aegis, so he goes and attacks the enemy. It's completely sensible. It's completely fine that he goes and fights the enemy team here. And this is like a death trap. When the Radiant takes Aegis, they always go here, and anyone who's on Dire that stays here just dies, because the enemy carry just picked up the Aegis. You cannot fight that in most cases. I mean, in some games you actually sneak the Aegis when you're behind, and then you just use it to farm and have a little bit of map control, because you're too far behind to go and push into the enemy. But that's not applicable here, and it's not applicable in the vast majority of games. So what the hell are you doing? Why did you jungle? So when you take Aegis, you instantly just barrel down the mid lane. That's all you should be doing right now. You should be right here. You should be right here standing behind your troll. You should be standing behind your troll warlord the whole time. Ever since he picks up the Aegis, you should be just following your troll warlord. And did you get tilted because you wanted the Aegis or something? I guess not, because you weren't even there. Like, you should be following your troll warlord at this point. And if you had, you probably would have won this fight. Like, why are you over here in the river? You can't even... You're auto-attacking uphill. You're not even auto-attacking... You're not even there. You basically don't exist in this game. You farm up 16,000 net worth, and then you're just not there. You should have been playing aggressively behind your troll warlord. And this was basically the biggest throw in the game. And after this, nothing of interest happens. Actually, let's analyze this troll warlord a bit. So when he respawns after... He must have been so angry about losing that Aegis. Now, it's possible that the reason he goes in like this is because he's bad. But I think the other alternative is that he goes in because he's tilted, because you didn't support him. And so he just dies. And at this point, the game is over. It takes a little while to end, but basically the game is over and there's nothing more to say. So that was a big throw. And you're still top of the net worth charts, but these two mistakes right here were huge. So these two things are definitely things you can work on quite easily. And that's all I have to say, really. I'm only a 4K player. I don't play carries. So my advice probably isn't the best. Don't take everything I say as gospel. But I hope a lot of it's been useful to you. So good luck and have fun.